From Kurtco Media.
Ian kept the team always extremely small. That meant we all were very busy. I worked on all the exteriors, the Dawn, the Ghost, the Wraith, the new phase of the Phantom, all in the same time, all in these 9 years.
Good heavens. That was quite an evolution of models too, because, you know.
Yeah, these were a lot of models.
Convertible, essentially a convertible Ghost, which
Yeah.
was the Dawn. And of course the Wraith was a very polarizing design. Hello and welcome to Cars That Matter. I'm your host, Robert Ross. Rolls-Royce, a car that needs no introduction, an icon of design for over 100 years, a car mark with a storied past. In this episode, we explore the more recent chapters of the marque's history, speaking with designers Marek Djordjevic and Andreas Thurner, responsible for the design of the Phantom and Ghost, respectively, among other models. Stay tuned for insights into the essence of Rolls-Royce and the process behind the evolution of Rolls-Royce design. Welcome to another episode of Cars That Matter. This is Robert Ross, and I'm back at Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, California, with two friends who are two friends of one another. Marek Djordjevic, you've been on our earlier episode, and my old friend Andreas Thurner. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us, Robert.
And this conversation is about something very specific. It's about Rolls-Royce, because Rolls-Royce is a history that the both of you intimately share. Marek, of course, you started with Rolls-Royce when the Phantom was introduced to the public in 2003. And Andreas, you came to the company just as Marek was leaving. So I think we're going to have a pretty interesting conversation about what it was like to pass the torch over that formative first decade and just get some really interesting insights into what it was like to create an icon. Marek, tell us about how it all started.
Oh gosh. You know, it's actually an example in life where you just need to have faith that things will work out for the best. Just in 1998, springtime, one of the projects that I was working on, it was meant to be my first production car for BMW, was canceled. Happens all the time in the car industry. You just have to have the thick skin for that. 2 months later, BMW acquired rights to Rolls-Royce. What was fortuitous in my situation was that I had the time to think about putting together the process about how to go about designing a Rolls-Royce that will be authentic to its heritage and to its values.
They needed something new.
They did. But at the same time, we wanted to make sure that the car that we designed not only summarizes all of the history and the heritage of the brand, but moves it forward into the future as it was to be the first Rolls-Royce in the 21st century.
That's right.
The plan called for setting up a studio in London and pulling the resources from BMW Group internationally. So we had 3 of us competing for the exterior design and 2 for the interior design of the car. Working very closely with engineering on developing the very package, the architecture of the vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
Many discussions about the size of the wheels, the length of the wheelbase, dash to axle, and all of that, the very scale of the car.
Which is fundamental to the ethos of a Rolls-Royce. I mean, it's not a BMW 7 Series, it's got to be a Rolls-Royce.
Absolutely. And a lot of people were expecting that that's what we would do, but it was absolutely imperative that the product was authentic to the values of Rolls-Royce.
Well, that's a fascinating project. Obviously, I remember when the Phantom VII was introduced in America, and I thought it basically died and gone to heaven. It was the first Rolls-Royce that I'd seen in years that actually really embodied the ethos of the brand, but was also a thoroughly modern car, a fantastic car. And by the way, with a V12 engine. I mean, it just didn't get any better.
I would say very dear to me was the time when we were preparing to introduce the car to the market. But because of the agreements that we've had in regards to the ongoing sales of the previous models, these presentations to potential customers were done covertly.
Yes.
At the time, this was quite unusual. So these presentations were done in various locations around the world with our dear friend Ian Cameron, who was our boss, the design director, doing these presentations in Munich and London, our chief engineer in the Middle East, and myself in Florida and California, in Tokyo and in Hong Kong.
That's a real international audience. And apropos of Ian Cameron, obviously a friend of all of ours, tragically Ian died in 2024, and it was a great loss to the entire industry. He'd been the design chief at Rolls-Royce for 10 years before he retired in 2012, but maintained quite an influence, and of course had a great influence on both you, Marek, and you, Andreas. Tell us about what it was like to sort of leave and come in, respectively, because you left Rolls-Royce shortly after the introduction of the Phantom VII. Is that right?
In 2005. So actually, after the introduction of the drophead, and after the centenary 100EX.
That's right, which was your project. Let's talk about that. What was the EX like? Because I remember the car. It was a phenomenal thing.
It was just absolutely
one of one.
One of one dream project that a designer could ever have. Incredible. The underpinnings were shared with the Phantom. The interesting thing there was that with Ian's wisdom, we used the project to help us fund the development of the drophead, of the convertible, to be able to sell the project to the board of directors and so on. So with one exception, the 100EX had a longer dash to axle because it was to fit not a V12, but a V16.
Yeah.
That car was EX stood for experimental. It was a fully developed, fully engineered, fully phased out vehicle whose engine was so smooth that we have a wonderful picture of Ian putting a pound coin on its side while it's idling and staying up.
So Andreas, you came on board from BMW. Tell us about your experience, how you met Ian, and what the next steps were.
It's actually interesting, and in these rooms with these sketches on the wall, it reminds me so much back to the time, because I was sponsored by BMW for an internship 6 months, and as well for my final degree. I did a 7 Series model, searching for the spirit of BMW in the future, and presenting my final thesis 7 Series to the design chiefs of the BMW group, Mini, Rolls-Royce, BMW. And that was the first time I ever saw Ian Cameron. Even though I've been there, I was there 1 year basically before, I never saw anybody of the Rolls-Royce design team ever before. So they basically were like phantoms and ghosts to me. They were
literal
somewhere.
Phantoms
they
and
were
ghosts.
somewhere,
Yes.
and this is how they worked really on their own. So I never even dreamed or thought about working for them. I had no relationship with them personally. But I have to say, I was a student when the Phantom came out, and I surely had a picture of the Phantom on my image boards, and I just loved it so much that I couldn't even imagine that a car like this would be possible in that time and age. You know, that different, this confident, ground up, built on a space frame, you know, with real handwork into it. You could tell, you could see the spirit of ecstasy, the grille, many other things. I was just positively shocked about this car. And when Ian Cameron, after my presentation, introduced himself, very charming, very, you know, humble as he was, and immediately called his team together. You might remember this, into the penthouse to introduce me to the team. I was totally in love that first second, and you know, shortly after he invited me for an interview, in which he said, "You don't have to sell anything to me. We have to sell us to you." This is kind of the way he talked. He's just so humble and so beautiful. He was that I was sold.
So you're all of a sudden you're working with Rolls-Royce, and they had one car.
They had one car.
They had his car.
They had his car.
They needed more cars.
And they had the incredible 100EX that Marek mentioned. Actually as well, the 100EX, a typical Ian. In my interview, he just took me and drove with me to the modeling studio, which we called Panzerhalle, where the 100EX was in the making. It was not even launched at that time. And at that time, I had no confidentiality agreement anymore. I had nothing. He just trusted me.
You were just a guy off the street.
And he would show me this car in the making with all of the single wood pieces that were actually hand painted, and a true piece of art done by the best craftsmen in the world. And again, I was so amazed that there was any kind of interest for me to put me in, with these best designers in the world. So I could not describe, how much this meant to me. I was very intimidated as well.
Well, you obviously came up to the plate because your first project was a pretty important car.
I was hired for the project, which was called NGS at the very beginning.
That doesn't sound very exotic. What does that mean?
New Generation Saloon.
Okay.
Which at the very beginning, at the strategic phase when I started, beginning of 2004, it wasn't even very exactly clear what kind of car concept this would be. There were discussions, and certainly from us, from the design team, there was the idea to put forward another real exciting car to strengthen, what just had been started.
Give Rolls-Royce a real dynamic personality,
right now
attract some attention and beat some pots and pans so that everybody paid attention.
Right now there were two stars out there. There was the Phantom, there was the 100EX, and we thought we'll never do a cheap car. We do another star. We have to keep this going. So there was the discussion to do an open two-seater instead.
So next up was the Ghost. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the Ghost was especially at the beginning not an easy project. Marek, before you left, you participated as well a little bit in it at the very beginning. I just mentioned before that we had other ideas, and the reason for that was because the very first package plans were, I would say, more than challenging. When it was clear that we were going to do another next saloon, another next sedan, as we say here, we were absolutely committed to fight for the proportions and make it a real Rolls-Royce. So the next 1.5 years, I think 2 years after you left, I was the only exterior designer, a youngster fresh from school, and this was this challenging project, learning so much. And how Ian approached it was that we were doing 3 proportion models, looking exactly the same design-wise, which is the way you should do it, so that you can compare apple to apple. One with the proposed engineering package, which basically was a 7 Series with a higher roof. One which was our ideal package, and then one kind of in the middle compromising. So I was in charge of modeling these with modelers, all 3 of them, and I could learn so much in that time. What effect does what have? Like, for example, wheel size, overall diameter 702 to 740 to 760, or longer dash to axle. Proportion are everything for a brand like Rolls-Royce, where you have to be able to understand what you are talking about, even if it's 100 meters away, even if you do not see the front at all or the grille. You have to be able, just by the stance and the silhouette, to be able to understand what it is.
It's like being able to determine whether a cop's following you at night just by the headlights.
We actually, I found that to be a very particularly important thing in defining the brand, and we called that the very gesture of the mark, right? And I tried to illustrate that to help people understand from simple silhouettes. Just a simple black silhouette of 3 different vehicles that help communicate the uniqueness of a Rolls-Royce in its profile. And the first one was a little doodle of a Volkswagen Beetle, right? And the gesture was transporting. Then there was a silhouette of a BMW 3 Series, which had its kind of a nose down, tail up, kind of a wedge forward towards the road. And that was the gesture of driving, right? Kind of aggressive forward and so on. And for Rolls-Royce, it was high hood, descending center line towards the rear in a graceful way. So with a kind of a nose up, tail down, gliding forwards and up. conveying waftability, as
they
so
would-
famously
that-
penned
that's
by
right.
that.
That's right. They're the Rolls-Royce verb.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and the Phantom and the 100EX showed this perfectly. Now the challenge with the Ghost was that it was meant to be even more of a driver's car, and very agile. So we had to have pressure on the rear axle. So we had to lift the tail more than in proportion the Phantom would have done this. So this was a great challenge. I think that we, with the final product, we kind of 2 or even 3 inch higher than the very first proportion models started, but we were able to camouflage it or to balance it with the entire car and still make a Rolls-Royce out of it.
So clearly it was not a BMW 7 Series. It achieved its own personality.
Absolutely.
It was challenged, I guess, in some ways, or I would ask whether you were challenged as a designer, to the extent that the Phantom is a very big car, and the Phantom VII always had to be the kingpin. There would be a Phantom, and then there would be everything else in the scheme of things. So the Ghost was, as you say, a driver's car, also smaller in size, but it had to have the same gravitas as the Phantom in its own way.
That was a very personal challenge for me as well, as a young designer, looking up so much to Marek and to the designs you've done, to the Phantom. I just loved the Phantom so much. It was a holy piece for me that I would have loved to do just the exact same car again. I thought everything done differently would have been a mistake. But of course, Ian brought me in to do something new as well, something different. It had to be a new generation. So more and more started to see it just as a different personality. In my mind, the Phantom models were more kind of reflecting the personality of a Henry Royce, who was the older of the 2 founders, who was the genius engineer. And at one point I thought, well, the Ghost models probably reflect more the younger founder, Charles Rolls, which he wasn't very excited. He was not an engineer. He was an aristocrat. I think his family was one of the wealthy families in London. But he was a very, very fascinating gentleman who informed that different side of the brand for me as well at one point. What helped me as well, I mentioned before that open 2-seater, and that Ian would not be Ian if he would let go easily on things. So we just kept going as well. Even though there was no budget, that meant that I would do a full-size tape drawing on all 4 views, so that we, over the Christmas break, that we could do a section model of it and so on and so on. And we did later a quick 2-3 week Elias model, and the model was done. But this model, not being a saloon, helped me so much to free myself up from Phantom. So the form language of that open 2-seater really found its way into the Ghost as we know it.
Did that 2-seater ultimately become a Dawn or a Dawn-like thing?
No, the surface language, which is again very much inspired by trips to P&A Wood that we've done so many times. One of the finest restorers in England who restored these Bentley R-Type Continental, shaving them with this beautiful tension and surface. So that was very much inspired by full surfaces with a natural tension that you would only do with a hand, beating over wood. This was my dream of doing. So surface-wise, this project inspired for me the Ghost as well, but as well detail-wise. For example, the radiator grille that is now not how it should be on the Phantom, an additive piece which really stands up and shows, okay, here we are again.
Sure.
In the Ghost, it's inverted. It's sucking air. It's kind of
more integrated,
supporting the engine, which is the star at the Ghost as well, the V12 with a lot of torque and an amazing machine. The challenge was that it should never be a cheaper version of, right? It had to be a full Rolls-Royce from the start, but it had to make money as well. It had to push the company into the profitable zone. That was the clear aim. There was this interesting concept from our marketeers. You might remember that from Paul Ferriola this, we called it a wardrobe. He called it a wardrobe approach, and it really resonated with me. He said each Rolls-Royce should be like its own, suit or part of a personal wardrobe that you would pick out for a certain occasion.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, all of the Rolls-Royces should be ownable by one client, and he would use whatever he used. So the Phantom being the tuxedo, or the pinnacle, the finest, and the Ghost being more the open color sports suit, if you like. So that would not make the Ghost a cheaper car, just a different purpose car. I love that idea. I wanted to mention as well, talking about Ian, what Ian was so good about, and I think Ian was open to learn what he learned with the Phantom project, or saw as really successful with the Phantom project, is to pull the designers out of the context of Munich, BMW, the daily pressures and stress of the normal life, and putting the designers in London. So he pushed for that in the years that I was there, in the 9 years for the Ghost. After those 2 years of proportion phase, he sent a small group of designers to southern England for 3 months. And we were in a 16th century beautiful house in West Sussex, and did literally the same thing. Charles, our mutual friend, had the pleasure of experiencing both the bank and Westoke House.
And this is where a Rolls-Royce customer would have lived in 1920. And you actually soaked in the whole ethos of that lifestyle.
It was just really amazing, almost intimidatingly amazing at the beginning. We had our own chef who had 1 Michelin star and later 2. People came like Rowan Atkinson and so on for dinners. It was just really amazing, because other than with the Phantom phase, now there was already the Phantom. There were already the first Phantom clients who as well had friendships with Ian, and Ian could invite them in so that they share their stories and inspire us. So the Phantom was there to inform us for the future. Westoke House was one of those aspects. We went to an island in a 1,000-year-old monastery and sketched there just with paper and pen for weeks. So yeah, it was awesome. It was so much work. Ian kept the team always extremely small. That meant we all were very busy. I worked on all the exteriors, the Dawn, the Ghost, the Wraith, the new phase of the Phantom, all in the same time, all in these 9 years.
Good heavens. That was quite an evolution of models too, because,
Yeah, these were a lot of models.
Convertible, essentially a convertible Ghost, which was the Dawn. And of course the Wraith was a very polarizing design, kind of a love it or hate it profile. And, I guess thanks to that, or, that sort of evolved the new vocabulary for the Spectre and all that.
Yeah. Fascinating, and a once-in-a-lifetime chance to work with this team and with Ian. Learn so much from Ian, and this time we trusted to do this work for him.
So I just wanted to say that these experiences of putting designers into environments that are inspiring, they're not frivolous. They are very, very important, because the task at hand is to bring a designer as close as possible to the environment in which these cars are used, driven, experienced, to bring them in conversations with customers, allowing them to get a glimpse into the lifestyle, to the meaning and character and gravitas behind the product, behind the vehicle.
These are just parts of a very well-lived life. And it's important then to put something like a Rolls-Royce in the context of all that. So having these experiences shared is I'm imagining, really important. The question I would have is, it's no secret, Rolls-Royce is a German-owned brand now. I've got a Serbian and a German here, and you guys are designing Rolls-Royces. Where are the English guys? Does it matter anymore? And by the way, what about the craftsmen? I know that Rolls-Royce is in a new factory in Goodwood, so there's certainly a heritage there, but are cars truly international things now?
Well, I think you bring up a very, very interesting point. I think that there has recently been a distinct direction towards what we can call international design. So there is to some degree a dilution of what used to be some very clear culturally identifiable characteristics and characters, if you will, of the cars. What was so beautiful about having a chance to work on a Rolls-Royce is because it was one of those marks that so clearly embodied such positive British attributes. And so part of the challenge on the project was not only to make sure that we are aware of, identify, and bring to the fore Britishness in its design, but then also it was very important to distinguish within British luxury what is Rolls-Royce luxury versus Jaguar or Daimler or Bentley or Aston Martin and so on. So again, this is why it was so important to undertake the very design process is an environment in which you can be immersed in the culture, in the ethos, in the spirit of what it's meant to represent. And I think, speaking of us not being British, it's definitely important to have a balance from a view inside and a view outside.
Because by the way, the customers are international.
Exactly. And sometimes you can't see the forest from the trees, and you need to kind of get a view from outside of the forest to really appreciate what it stands for. We must mention both of us not only working under Ian, who was such a fantastic leader and inspiration and a mentor to us, but we both had an incredible privilege and joy of working together with Charles Coldham, who designed the interiors of both Phantom and Ghost.
Right.
And what
interiors those are. I mean, what a place to be.
Yeah.
You talk about intimidating. Getting inside my first Rolls-Royce, I thought, I died and gone to heaven. But at the same time, such a comfortable, welcoming place.
Well, he captured the interior spirit of Rolls-Royce in ways that are just awe-inspiring for me. And one thing that I found incredible with Charles is that he was older than us. He is older than us. And, they often say that, designers have a certain span of kind of productive creativity, and then they kind of peter out as they age into their career. Nothing like that with Charles. He was putting 20-year-olds to shame with levels of creativity that he had in his 60s. Like, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
And a kindest, most amazing teammate you can possibly have on board.
Andreas, tell us about how your fine art with horses inspired your work with Rolls-Royce.
Every designer has a very personal approach to get to his designs or to be inspired. For me, very much I was thinking about personalities behind. I mentioned before Sir Henry Royce or Charles Rolls. But as well, when we were at these excursions in England, we as well had the chance to visit horse races. That was for me the first time. And I was totally inspired by the energy, the pedigree, the beautiful, balanced bodies of the horses. You could feel the energy before you even could see the horses, because you could feel the vibration on the ground. So all of that captured me totally. And I did a series of horse paintings, some of pictures that I took, some out of my imagination from those. And actually a real part of it, what I particularly pushed during this time at Westoke House is as a differentiation from Phantom again, is to lifting the body visually even more off the ground, to emphasize on different characters for the driver's car, but as well the feeling of being effortless wherever
because
you
horse
go.
is airborne. The horse is airborne
So
half
exactly,
the time.
some of these paintings show the volume of the horse off the ground, basically gliding off the ground, because the feet you could almost not see of the speed. So this inspired me so much, and I wanted visually to lift the car off the ground with more clearance around the wheels, more ground clearance, inspired by the horses. And I really processed this whole idea, what captured me, so by painting the horses. So it's a was one of the approaches.
That's
But
fantastic.
Many approaches, many ingredients has come together, which are, by the way, very different for every designer. Very, very different.
Well, once again, nature inspires art and design. I always like to get in a designer's head. Your 3 favorite cars, Marek and Andreas.
I go for the first car. Favorite Ferrari 330 GTC Pininfarina, I would say.
Okay.
Very good. Mine's a Ferrari too, but it's actually a one-off. Chassis 0547. I think it was based on a GT Europa, but it was made as a one-off for a customer in Rome by the name of Commendatore Ferrario. It has one of the cleanest designs that I can ever imagine. It was beauty that gave it value.
Doesn't beauty always give cars value?
Exactly.
Andreas, what do you think?
Next one is my first car, actually, the car that I paid with my first earned money at Rolls-Royce was the Bertone GT, the Alfa.
Yeah.
Ian actually helped me.
That's a GTV for people
the
who don't.
GTV.
Yeah.
Well, I had the 1600 version, so slightly smaller engine. Ian actually helped me. He test drove the car with me.
He loved GTVs,
back then,
didn't he?
and he approved it to buy it. And I loved the car so much. Giugiaro's first, or one of his first
designs, 1962, I think.
I think when he was 25 years old, he was exactly the same age as I was when I started to design the Ghost, which was so meaningful for me, working 5 years on the Ghost.
It's fantastic, fantastic. And that's a great choice. That GTV is truly an all-time classic.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Hard pressed, Robert, but Maserati, right? But now you ask me which one, and I am struggling because, I mean, if it's a 5000 GT, maybe Alemano body.
Yeah, the Alemano, that's a fantastic car.
Or a more modest Sebring. Or
that's an underrated car.
Absolutely.
The Series 1 Sebring, what a beautiful thing.
I completely agree. Yeah. They're disciplined, but Italian flair, right? Or a Ghibli, or also very, very dear car to me.
Hey, make a choice.
Hampson.
Yes, well, that was one of Ian's favorites. In fact, he had one when he passed away.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
and I've had the privilege of being driven in it. He didn't quite let me have the keys, but a very spirited drive on the back roads around his hometown.
Yeah.
He, by the way, was a phenomenal driver.
You got one more car?
Yeah, talking about Ian, we still want to keep him here with us. All of his cars actually are amazing that he worked on. Of course, he finished the Z8. He brought this excellent to the E46 3 Series, which I owned at one point. But one car that really stands out for me, and at one point I will own one, not so far, but at one point, is the L30 Range Rover, which he, as well as a manager, helped finalizing and bringing to the quality it had. And the reason why I love this car so much is that other than any other Range Rover, it was like a chameleon to make everybody look just perfect in this car. If it was the Queen, if it was a farmer, if it was anybody, it was just perfect in any occasion. And I cannot think of any other car which can do that. So this is one of my all-time favorites, and the typical Ian, because it's very subtle in its qualities and in his design executions and sophistication. So that is absolutely his handwriting.
It's easy to see how he was able to translate some of that to the Rolls-Royce sensibility. I mean, that authenticity and sort of rears its head in both of those designs.
Yeah.
So I'll have to change gears from Italy, because otherwise we'll just keep everything in Italy for me. But I would say I'll go back to one of my childhood favorites, Porsche 928.
Oh.
I thought that was one of the most long-lasting in how futuristic it was.
Yeah.
That car looked modern and new and different.
Still does.
Still does.
It's a spaceship.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
What a thing.
It's brilliant design.
Well, thanks for sharing some of your personal favorites. I know that it's looking back in time, but sometimes looking back in time is one of the most useful exercises in understanding why we're going where we're going. What inspires people who are doing things for the future? What inspires engineers and designers to do new things? Well, thanks so much for joining us today at Art Center. Appreciate the hospitality here. It's a fantastic place to be. Makes me wish I were in school again. And I really enjoyed our conversation, Marek and Andreas. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Are you thinking about building a car collection but aren't sure where to start? Here's a car within reach from Hemmings that could become your garage gold. The 1992 to 2007 Dodge Viper. Since its earliest days, the Dodge Viper has been a raucous good time, a simple, unsophisticated sports car built around a booming all-aluminum V10 engine. While it has seen refinements over the years that ultimately turned it into a winner at Le Mans, it never really lost its unique spirit. A Viper will never be confused for a Porsche or a Ferrari, or even a Corvette, even though it might be faster. For that raw, unhinged, all-American V10 spirit in a two-seat sports car, expect to pay anywhere from $30,000 right on up to $100,000. On my next episode, I'm joined by Fireball Tim Lawrence for a tour of movie cars at the Peterson Automotive Museum. Cars That Matter is a Kurtco Media production. I'm your host, Robert Ross. The show is produced by Bill Curtis and Stuart Halpern, with audio and video production by Ness Smith-Sabadoff, and additional support from Melody Larson, Lindsay Davis, Deborah Smith, and AJ Mosley. To listen to more episodes of Cars That Matter, follow us on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you like this episode, be sure to rate us 5 stars to help other listeners discover the show. For exclusive video episodes, visit hemmings.com/Cars That Matter.
From Kurtco Media.